thank you once again for this opportunity to come into your presence to study your word. It is my prayer, Lord, that you open every ear to hear, every heart to receive, all that it is that you would have for us to receive. Dear God, I will be so careful to give you all the honor, glory, and praise because I recognize that it all belongs to you. And so, Lord, I ask that you anoint me afresh and empower me that makes teaching easy. Have your way in this place, Lord. You lead, I follow. And so, God, I ask that you, as we out every Tuesday and Sunday, that is to exceed our expectations, Lord, in this time of sharing. And so, Lord, we request, your servants' requests. Speak, Lord, for your servants are listening.
Amen.
Amen. Judges chapter 6. We're going to be looking at just one verse, and that is verse 11. Judges chapter 6, verse 11. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak of Ophrah that belonged to Joaz the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. Again, Gideon is threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it or to hide it, to protect it from the Midianites. And as we have talked about last week and on Sunday, but as we talked about this, we talked early on in chapter 6, we talked about how Midian came in and invaded Israel. But remember that they were sent by who? Who is punishing Israel because they had been disobedient. God, this was a consequence that they are serving. He sent Midian in there. Midian has invaded Israel, and basically what has happened is they are just running through it, just tearing it up, doing what they want to do. In other words, what they are doing, as we talked about on Sunday, is think about who remembers the movie Friday. Mm-hmm. Y'all remember, I know everybody has a favorite. Mine was Smokey. Whose was y'all's?
Smokey, the dad.
Smokey, who else?
The dad.
The dad. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Hmm? Oh, and I know everybody remember that. We all still say it, that famous phrase, bye Felicia. Y'all remember that? Remember when Ice Cube, well, what was his name again? Craig? What was his name? Craig. When he told Felicia, remember she wanted to borrow a VCR?
Microwave.
Or a microwave, or something. It was something bizarre that she wanted to borrow, and he was like, that's where that "Bye Felicia" comes from. But mine was Smokey. But nobody says that their favorite was Debo. Why wasn't Debo a favorite?
I guess he was a bully one.
He was a bully, right? Remember he would come up on that bike and poor Red. Y'all remember the character Red? Red was always falling victim to Debo, right? But Debo was a neighborhood bully, big guy, could fight, and he would go around the neighborhood and whatever he wanted to help himself to, he helped himself to. So kind of think of the Midianites in that way. They came into Israel and they took what they wanted. And if you tried to resist, you would get the business. Did I just make that plain? And so, we see here, as we talked about last week, we talked about our theme this year is blooming where you are. In other words, thriving, growing, flourishing where you are, despite your circumstances, despite whatever situation you find yourself, we still are required to bloom. We're still required to thrive. And so what we seen last week is we seen that they were thriving. And you might say, well, how? And they were flourishing. How are they thriving or blooming or flourishing when all of this mess is going on, when they're being oppressed, when they're being robbed, if you will, when they're being treated poorly? How can you thrive in that? Well, remember that when the Midianites came into their land and was ravishing the land and doing all kinds of things and treating them bad and fighting and all that kind of things, they said that they hid in caves, strongholds, and mountain like clefts, right? And so how do you thrive in a situation like that? You're thriving by surviving. Being able to survive in that circumstance, in that environment, says a lot about us. You're alive. Somebody needs to hear that today. You are alive. That situation, that thing did not take you out. And so you're still thriving because you survived. That situation, again, that thing did not take you out. You used wisdom and said, you know what? I know that I can't beat them. Ain't that what we used to do when we was kids? If you know you can't beat them, what do? You run home or you hide, right? And so they decided to hide in order to preserve their lives. Meaning laughing, somebody must be saying something crazy on live. Are you guys able to hear? Somebody said
Yeah, they hear. They're good now. They're good.
You're good now? Okay. And so they were doing all that. So then we find ourselves in verse 11. But prior to verse 11, they had cried out to the Lord about all that was going on with them. And so when we find ourselves in verse 11, let's go to verse 11. It says, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in the winepress in order to keep it from the Midianites. So here we see here that, remember I told you that they're coming in and they're just taking. And really what their plan is, their goal is to devastate Israel. They don't care about no kids. They don't care about no old people. They don't care about nothing. They don't care. They want to devastate. And when you think of the idea of devastation, what comes to mind? Ruin. They want to ruin their life. Have you ever met somebody that was just wanting to, their goal is to ruin you? And it may not even be that you did anything to them. It could be something as simple as breaking up with somebody. You ever broke up with somebody or divorced somebody and had good reason to, but then they made it their business to try to ruin you just because you no longer wanted to be with them? Or have you ever been on a job where you fell out with a coworker and their goal was to ruin you? And so their goal is to ruin them. So Gideon understands this. And what happened is, notice that it says that he is threshing wheat. And some translation says near or by the winepress, or in the winepress. It's important for us to understand that the very fact that he has wheat allows us to understand that a harvest has come in. So, a harvest coming in should indicate a time of blessing, right? A time of benefiting or reaping what you have sown, right? Meaning that if you sown seeds of wheat, then after a few months you're going to reap and harvest. So this should be a time of abundance. It should be a time of benefit, right? But instead, it is a time of harvest, but it's also a time where the enemy has attacked that harvest. And so sometimes it can be two things at one time. It can be the best of times and the worst of times all at the same time. You ever experienced that? Where things can be going good over in one part of your life, but things can be all jacked up in another part of your life.
Yeah.
But all of this is happening all at the same time. Maybe you got promoted on your job. You finally got the position that you have hoped for, but all hell is breaking loose in your house with your kids. Sometimes it can be the best of times and the worst of times all at the same time. It's almost like you can't even enjoy this over here because of all this going on over here. And so the harvest is coming in. So there's nothing wrong with the ground. There's nothing wrong with the seed. There's nothing wrong with the harvest. The problem is the bullies is coming in and taking. And so what does he do? He says, I'm going to try to figure out some kind of way to keep my stuff. It may be a little bit of stuff, but I'm going to try to figure out what I can do to keep my stuff. In other words, how can I hide this from you? There's a wife right now trying to figure out how to keep some money because the husband is going in her purse while she's asleep. Or that somebody might be in an abusive relationship where she's making or he's making the money, but the other spouse is coming in and taking it as fast as she can make it, or he can make it. You ever had to hide some money? Because if that person know you got it, they're gonna figure out how to get it. This is off subject, but I just want to say this. Ladies, be careful of them dudes that only come around between January and March. What you say? Income tax. If they haven't been, this is totally off subject. If they haven't been bothered with you all year, beware the ones that's buttering you up around January. Because their goal is to get what? All your money. They want Jordans, they want a kick around car, they want all your money. And they want to go to Red, where? Lobster. All right, that's that. And so, Gideon says, he's observing of what's going on in the land, and he's trying to figure out, how can I preserve what I have? How can I hide? What can I do to keep the very thing that I worked hard for? Because when you sow, when you're putting the seed in the ground, that's labor, that's work. And when you're reaping it and you're harvesting it, that's work. So can we say that he worked for this?
Right.
How can I work for it, but then you come in and take it? And so he's trying to figure out, what can I do to protect this? And many of us may find ourselves in a similar circumstance where we're trying to figure out, how can I keep what I've worked so hard for? What can I do? But guess what he did? He got creative. Because threshing wheat near a wine press was not normal. That was not the normal thing to do. You would thresh wheat on the top of a hill in a very open space, because whether you had a threshing instrument that would thresh the wheat for you, or you had an ox that would thresh the wheat for you, what we would do is the grain would be encased in a an encasement. And what the threshing instrument or the oxen would do was thresh the wheat in order to break open that shell in order for the grain to be exposed. And what would happen is the wind would then take that shell, or what they call the shaft, and the wind would blow away the shaft, which is something that you did not need, and then you would only remain with the grain. And so also what we need to understand is wheat was sustenance. It was something that was needed in order for them to survive. It was their food. So not only did they work hard for it, not only did they labor for it, but it was something that was part of keeping them alive. So there's a lot of, this grain, this wheat was important. And so he understood that, and he says, I'm not gonna just let them just come in here and do what they wanna do. They might outnumber me, they might confide me, and they might be able to overpower me, but they ain't gonna outthink me.
That's pretty good.
I don't know why I'm still here on this abuse thing. There might be somebody that's living with an abuser, bigger than you, overpowering you, you're scared of him, all of that. But one thing that you got that they can't take is your mind. You can outthink them. So Gideon, I'm gonna outthink him. What I'm gonna do, I ain't gonna thresh my wheat in the normal space in order for them to come and take my stuff. I'm gonna go by the wine press. I'm gonna go there because that's not the normal place for me to do this. But I'm gonna go there. It may cause me to have to work a little harder because you don't have what you need, the normal things that you need to do it. He had to improvise. He had to, what do you call that?
Make do.
Make do. He had to make do. And so he did it by the wine press. And when we think about wine press, it is a place where they would make wine, and they would have grapes. And that was a place, when you make wine, there is a pressing that goes on. You have to crush grapes, right? You have to press grapes in order to extract the what? The juice, right? So imagine the place that he's in. He's in a place of pressure. He's in a place where there's crushing. That is symbolic for crushing and pressure. So all of this is going on, but guess what? He's still there. He's still showing up. He's doing what he needs to do in spite of the pressure, in spite of what's going on. He's choosing to protect what he has, his stuff. And so he might can't beat him, but he's outthinking him. And that's what I want us to understand. We may not be able to go up against whatever it is that's trying to destroy us or ruin us, but we can sure outthink him. What can I do to protect this? What can I do to protect my money? What can I do to protect my livelihood? What can I do to protect my peace? What can I do to protect that Pepsi that them kids keep going in the refrigerator taking? You know kids will take your stuff, right? But let's talk about protecting our peace. There's been times where you might live in a place that has a lot of people living there, right? And sometimes you just want to be left alone, especially if you have little kids. All you hear is mommy, 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 mommy. Sometimes what moms need to do, and a lot of us do it, we hide in the bathroom. Sometimes you have to hide in the bathroom in order to stay sane. Am I lying? Because guess what? If you don't take the time to hide, them kids gonna ruin you. That spouse is gonna ruin you. That job is gonna ruin you. Sometimes, maybe it's not the bathroom at home. Maybe you gotta find a room at work. I'm sorry, Nene, for moving. Maybe you gotta find a room at work in order to protect your peace, to protect your mind. Sometimes we have to do what we have to do. Questions? Questions? Okay, they're saying they're good now, so they do have sound. No questions? Does anybody ever have to make do out of something? Hmm? Anybody want to share?
Uh-huh.
Hmm? Sometimes we do. You have to take what little you have and protect it. Somebody needs to take that money and dig a hole in the backyard when Fred ain't home. Somebody needs to put most of that money in the bank and then bring some over home, or sometimes you might even need to lock some of it up at work. Somebody going through the pot too fast at home, or going through the groceries at home too fast, sometimes you gotta take some of the snacks and you gotta hide them in your trunk. No? Oh, just my house. And so the angel Lord came in, so he found him threshing wheat in the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And so that's basically what this lesson is about tonight. What are you willing to do to protect the little that you got? The little piece of mind. The little piece of a mind. Your finances. Your groceries. What are some other things? Anybody? Y'all a good group tonight. Y'all got a lot of questions. And so if we don't have any questions, guess what? That's all we get tonight.
Great lesson.
Yeah.